We shall overcome someday.
Hartford Rising is a collective group of people who come together for the basic needs of our community. We have a lot of people in our community who are returning home from prison. They need help. We have a lot of single parents in our community. They need help also. We want to push our leaders to effectively promote ordinances and promote legislation to help our community.
And as a former student here, I know that when you have teachers and paras in a community that works together, things can change. And what we want to propose for jobs is we believe our city's neighborhoods deserve better than dead-end minimum wage jobs that don't support our families. We know that minimum wage is not enough to lift ourselves out of poverty. We need jobs with livable wages and decent benefits. We believe that family-sustaining jobs can be the foundation of a strong, thriving community, but it takes a commitment of business leaders. We expect our political leaders to do more than create family-sustaining jobs with decent wages and benefits for our family, and we know that if our policymakers and the folks that we vote in will actually take accountability and responsibility for creating systems that work. Not just doing the same business as usual as been stated, but we want to see a change that is effective. And we must get our community working again. And together, we can change this one step at a time. We know we can achieve this goal, and that's why as a community we're coming together today to say we can, we must, and we will.
What's inspiring is some of the issues that the people raise, and as a public official, all of us are supposed to be held accountable, and we should be. Feet to the fire and all that. And so you had a couple of public officials here today who would welcome that, as we will. And if we miss a step, then we should have people coming into making demands, not just requests.
One of the things we want to impress upon everybody is that we're here to amplify parent voices. Traditionally, teachers and today have always played the role of advocates for parents, advocates for students, advocates for their communities, because at the end of the day, we live, we work, and as the community thrives, we thrive. And the most important thing for us is for little people like him to grow up in a world, in a community where he's safe, he's nurtured, and he has the best education possible. And that can only happen when folks come out and advocate and do the things like that are necessary.
Hand in hand, we'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday.
Well, first of all, I'm very excited about Hartford Rising, and I'm very excited about the idea of a community Bill of Rights. I think it's long overdue. I'm very concerned about the dismantling of the public schools. It seems like the policy of our business leaders and our political leaders is to create all these privatized schools and slowly dismantle the neighborhood schools. And during the process, teachers have been demonized. Teachers have been accused of being the cause of the problem, when we know that's not true. Communities have been pitted against each other, and it's all for profiteering. And just like health should not be for private profit, public education is a long-standing institution in this country that's part of our basis of our democratic system, and we need to fight to preserve it. So let's improve our neighborhood schools, demand that our neighborhood schools get the same kind of attention and services and wraparound services that these so-called model schools are getting.
I went to one of the board meetings for the city education, and I was shocked that they want to pour more money into schools that are already doing okay instead of pulling up the kids that don't already have. And we work a lot with kids that don't have the access to the things that I grew up having, and it's unjust, it's not fair, and every kid should have access to equal opportunities, and that starts in the school system.
We will no longer tolerate the businesses as usual of political and business leaders who ignore the concern of communities like ours. We have seen our communities cut off and shut out for too long, and we are joining together for the strength of taking action for change.
Poverty affects our children. They are the weakest and the most deprived. It affects them in their home lives and in their education. And until we get rid of poverty, America will truly not move forward. As Martin Luther King said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter.
We are not afraid. We are not afraid today.
Where there's a drought, where there's a dry up, where there's unemployment, where I speak for the working poor trying to make ends meet. Use your voice in the wilderness. 50 years later, there's still lashings, but they're invisible. But they're pain, internal pains that hurt. Use your voice in the wilderness. And that's what I want to say. I just want to leave a legacy of empowerment. Instead of impact, we need to empower.
We, the Hartford Rising Movement, plan to draft and adopt a community bill of rights to help overcome poverty in our city. We recognize that our communities have actually lost ground in many areas since President Johnson declared a war on poverty 50 years ago. We are committed to combat high unemployment, disparities in civil rights, income equality, and lack of quality public education for all our students. We are engaging our communities to develop a social contract that we will seek to enter with elected officials and business leaders to improve our lives in Hartford.
We know that the unemployment rate in our city is dragging down the quality of life for all. The 13.1% rate is more than twice that of the rate in 1964. We all must take action when more than a third of Hartford's families are living in poverty. That's nearly 3 times as many 50 years ago.
We're still fighting for the same thing. It's like I'm standing in Martin Luther King footprints, and we're just trying to make a better place for everyone to live in Hartford and in the U.S. as a community together.
I grew up in Hartford. I went to Vine Street School, Martin Luther King, Hartford Public High School, and I thought I was getting a good education until about in 2005, I had the privilege, and I'll say it again, the privilege of living in West Hartford, Connecticut. And my children went to the West Hartford Public Schools, and I saw what they were learning as opposed to what I had learned. I was like 3 years behind to the pace where they were at. And then when my children moved to Hartford and entered the Hartford Public Schools, I said, whoa.
The truth shall make us free. The truth shall make us free someday.
I am a teacher, and I work in the Hartford school system, and I teach kids, and I know that because of disparities in income, a lot of kids have been held in the system because they don't have the background from parents to actually do a lot of things that they actually need. So I'm teaching kids in the 7th grade or the 8th grade that is reading on a 3rd grade or a 2nd grade level, and they've just been pushed through the system. That is definitely an injustice, and it's a social injustice to all people. And I know it's happening all over America, but especially to our kids in our urban communities. We want to make sure that there's a Bill of Rights that is respected in the city of Hartford, and it would transpire or transpose to the conditions in education for children.
50 years after Dr. King's dream of integration in a just society, we now have a more segregated population with over 2 million young men and women currently incarcerated. Hartford is no different than the rest of the nation. Actually, many of our communities incarcerate the bulk of those incarcerated in the state. So as the Hartford Rising Coalition, we're committed to passing ban-the-box legislation that prohibits from discrimination against our entire community. We believe in jobs, we believe in education, we believe in a stronger Hartford together.
Our neighborhood schools are not the problem. Our kids are not the problems. Our teachers are not the problem. The problem is the school system is the problem. Yeah. I would like to think that we could fix the problem, but we must start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And it should be right here in front of J.C. Clark School, where it started at.
And I'm here today because years ago, actor and activist Harry Belafonte spoke about the last conversation he had with Dr. King before he passed away. He talked about how Dr. King said that he feared that he was integrating his people into a burning house. What he meant by that burning house was that there was nothing happening for poor people, although he was working so hard to integrate his people. It's amazing because here we are years and years later, and we are the result of that burning house. People who are burning down in poverty, educationally and across the board. And we've come out today to bear witness of the burning house, but not only that, but to serve as firemen and women to finally put out the fire for the cause of justice.